If you drive a Porsche built in the last 15 years, there are factory default settings and habits buried in your PCM and engine management system that are quietly grinding away at your engine's long-term health. Porsche engineered these settings to hit emissions targets and squeeze out fuel economy numbers for government spreadsheets. They were not designed to keep your flat 6 or turbocharged 4 alive past the warranty period. These are 12 settings and habits most Porsche owners never think twice about, and every single one of them is chipping away at your engine's reliability and lifespan. Number 12. Auto start stop left on by default. Every time your Porsche shuts off at a red light and fires back up a few seconds later, your starter motor, engine bearings and turbocharger are absorbing a hit. Porsche's own engineering acknowledges this creates additional wear on components. A Porsche with start-stop active in city driving can accumulate hundreds of thousands of start cycles over its lifetime, compared to tens of thousands without it. Porsche uses heavier-duty starters and reinforced bearings to handle it, but designed to survive the warranty period is not the same thing as good for your engine at 150,000 miles. The fuel savings are negligible, maybe a few dollars a year in real-world driving. You can turn it off manually every time you start the car by pressing the button near the gear selector, but it resets itself every single time you restart the engine. If you want it off permanently, a coding tool or a visit to a specialist can make the setting stick. Number 11. The factory oil change interval. This is the single most damaging factory default on any Porsche. The service interval indicator in your PCM can push your oil change reminder out to 10,000, even 15,000 miles depending on your driving conditions. That interval was calculated assuming mostly highway driving at steady speeds with minimal stop and go. If you live in a city, sit in traffic, take short trips where the engine never fully reaches operating temperature, or drive your Porsche hard on weekends, your oil is degrading far faster than that dashboard counter suggests. Independent Porsche specialists consistently recommend changing your oil every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, roughly half the factory interval. For turbocharged engines especially, oil breaks down faster under the heat and pressure that turbochargers generate. If you plan to keep your Porsche past 100,000 miles, do not trust the factory interval. Shorten it yourself or have your specialist program a shorter reminder into the service system. Number 10. PIDEC coasting and fuel-saving mode. When your Porsche is set to its most efficient driving mode and you lift off the accelerator, the PIDEC transmission can completely decouple the engine from the drivetrain, letting the car coast forward while the engine drops to idle. In theory, this saves fuel. In practice, your turbocharger is sitting at elevated temperatures with reduced airflow and minimal oil circulation during these coasting phases. On turbocharged Porsche engines, heat soak is one of the primary causes of turbo bearing degradation over time. The repeated engagement and disengagement also creates thermal cycling stress in the transmission itself. Every time the PDK ray engages under load, the clutch packs absorb that force. If you do not need the marginal fuel savings, switching to a standard driving mode eliminates this behavior entirely and keeps both your turbo and your transmission happier. Number 9. Active sound design masking real engine noises. Porsche pipes enhanced or partially synthesized engine sound into the cabin through the audio system on many of its modern models. The system adjusts volume and character based on throttle position and driving mode to make the cabin experience feel more connected to the engine. The reliability concern here is not the sound system itself, it is what that sound is hiding. That enhanced audio can mask genuine mechanical noises from your engine, exhaust, and drivetrain. A subtle valve tick, a turbo whine that changed pitch, or a new rattle from the timing chain area can all disappear behind the artificial soundtrack. These are exactly the kind of early warning signs that allow you to catch a problem at $500 instead of $5,000. You can often reduce or disable the sound enhancement through the PCM audio settings or with a diagnostic coding tool. Once it is turned down, you will hear what your engine actually sounds like for the first time. Number 8. Sport Plus mode as your daily setting. On the opposite end of the spectrum from Eco mode, running Sport Plus every single day is creating unnecessary wear across your entire drivetrain. Sport Plus holds gears far longer than necessary for normal driving, keeps RPMs elevated continuously, and generates excess heat in the turbocharger, engine oil, and PDK transmission fluid. The PDK shifts more aggressively in Sport Plus, which means harder engagement on the clutch packs with every single gear change. The relaxed PSM thresholds in Sport Plus also allow more wheel spin, creating sudden torque spikes through the differential and half shafts. Over time, repeated shock loads from those torque spikes accelerate wear on drivetrain components that were not designed to absorb that kind of abuse on a daily basis. Save Sport Plus for the track or the occasional canyon road. For daily driving, normal or standard sport mode gives you everything you need without the thermal and mechanical penalty. Number 7. The PDK lifetime fluid myth. Porsche originally described the PDK transmission fluid as a lifetime fill, meaning no scheduled change was required. This is one of the most misleading pieces of maintenance guidance in modern Porsche ownership. When Porsche says lifetime, they are defining lifetime as the expected useful life of the transmission under ideal conditions within the warranty period. They are not saying the fluid never degrades. It absolutely does. PD fluid lubricates the dual clutch packs, provides hydraulic pressure for gear selection, and cools critical internal components. Over time and miles, the fluid breaks down. Metal particles from normal clutch and gear wear contaminate it. Heat cycles degrade its viscosity. The result is fluid that no longer protects the gearbox the way it was designed to. Most independent Porsche specialists recommend changing PDK fluid every 40 to 60,000 miles for street-driven cars and every 20 to 25,000 miles if you track the car. A proper PDK service requires POS diagnostic access for temperature monitoring and adaptation resets, so this is not a DIY oil change. But skipping it entirely because Porsche said lifetime is how you end up facing a $25,000 transmission replacement. If you are getting value from this, hit subscribe. We break down Porsche maintenance and ownership tips every week. Now, let's keep going. Number 6. No turbo cooldown period. Modern Porsches have an after-run coolant pump that continues circulating coolant through the turbocharger after you shut the engine off. This is Porsche's engineering solution to turbo heat soak. But here is the catch. If you pull into your garage after sustained highway driving or spirited back road sessions and immediately kill the engine, lock the car and walk away, the after-run pump does its best, but the turbo oil feed lines can still experience coking over time from residual heat. Oil that sits in the turbo bearing housing at extreme temperatures without circulation can carbonize and form deposits that gradually restrict oil flow to the bearings. Letting the engine idle for even 30 to 60 seconds before shutting down after hard driving gives the turbo time to shed heat more gradually while the oil pump is still actively circulating. It is a free habit that costs you nothing but a minute of patience and can add years to your turbocharger's life. Number 5. Ignoring oil level between services. Porsche considers oil consumption of up to half a quart per 1,000 miles to be within factory specification on many of its engines. On some models, the tolerance is even higher. That means your engine could burn through a significant portion of its oil capacity between changes, and Porsche would not consider it a defect. If you are running the factory 10,000-mile oil change interval and your engine is consuming oil at anywhere near that rate, you could be running critically low on oil for thousands of miles before the next service reminder appears. The oil level warning on your dashboard does not alert you until the level has dropped to the absolute minimum safe threshold. By the time that light comes on, your engine has already been running with suboptimal lubrication for potentially thousands of miles. Check your oil level manually or through the PCM vehicle status screen every 2,000 to 3,000 miles. Do not wait for a warning light that only tells you about a problem after the damage window has already opened. Before we get into the next worst offenders on this list, one quick thing. The numbers on this channel show that about 80% of you watching right now have not hit subscribe. You keep showing up for Porsche content, but without that subscription, the algorithm has no incentive to put the next video in your feed. If you have made it this far, you clearly want to keep your car running right. Subscribe now so you actually see the next one when it drops. Number 4. Cold start aggressive driving. Porsche engines rev to around 1200 RPM on cold start to bring the catalytic converter up to operating temperature quickly for emissions compliance. Many owners immediately put the car in gear and start driving aggressively before the oil has reached full operating temperature. This is especially damaging on flat-six engines where the horizontally opposed cylinder layout means oil has to travel through longer passages to reach all the critical bearing surfaces. Oil is at its thickest when cold and does not flow to components like the turbocharger bearings, Vanos equivalent variable valve timing systems, and the crankshaft journals as effectively in the first few minutes of driving. Let the engine idle for 30 to 60 seconds after a cold start and keep RPMs below 3000 until the oil temperature gauge reads at least the midpoint of its range. This is one of the simplest things you can do to protect your engine, and most Porsche owners skip it every single morning. Number 3. SEM fully disabled for street driving. Turning off Porsche Stability Management completely removes the electronic safety net that limits wheel spin and prevents sudden traction loss. When a drive wheel breaks loose under hard acceleration and then suddenly regains grip, the instantaneous torque spike travels through the differential, half shafts, and PDK transmission. Over time, repeated shock loads from uncontrolled wheel spin accelerate wear on drivetrain components that were designed to operate within the parameters that SM provides. If you want a sportier feel without the full risk, PSM Sport Mode on Sport Chrono-equipped cars raises the intervention threshold significantly while still keeping a safety net active. It gives you more freedom to explore the car's limits without subjecting the drivetrain to uncontrolled abuse. Full PSM off should be reserved for the track, and only when you have the skill level and the right environment to manage it safely. Number 2. Creeping in traffic with the PDK engaged. This is one of the most overlooked habits that quietly wears out PDK clutch packs prematurely. When your Porsche is sitting in stop-and-go traffic with the transmission in drive, the PDK clutch is partially engaged the entire time you are crawling forward at walking speed. That partial engagement generates heat and creates wear on the clutch surfaces that adds up over thousands of hours of city commuting. Porsche specialists recommend shifting to neutral or using manual mode when you are stopped for more than a few seconds in heavy traffic. This fully disengages the clutch packs and lets them cool. It sounds like a minor habit change, but over the life of a PDK transmission that costs thousands to service and tens of thousands to replace, reducing unnecessary clutch engagement time is one of the cheapest forms of insurance you can buy. Number 1. Factory oil consumption tolerance and the bore scoring risk. This is the setting that ties everything together. Porsche considers a certain amount of oil consumption to be normal, and the factory service intervals are calibrated around that assumption. But on certain Porsche engines, particularly the 3-litre and 4-litre V6 engines found in the Macan and some Cayenne models, as well as the older M96 and M97 flat sixes, oil consumption combined with factory interval neglect has been linked to cylinder bore scoring. Bore scoring is exactly what it sounds like. Vertical scratches form on the cylinder walls when lubrication is insufficient, and once scoring starts, it accelerates rapidly. The repair requires either a full engine rebuild or an engine replacement, both of which can exceed 50% of the car's value. Independent specialists recommend more frequent oil changes with a high-quality, fully synthetic oil, regular oil level monitoring, and periodic cylinder bore scoping to catch scoring before it becomes catastrophic. If your Porsche is consuming oil at anywhere near the factory tolerance and you are running factory intervals, you are playing a game with very expensive consequences. Every one of these settings and habits shipped with your car from the factory or developed over time without you realizing the cost. And none of them will trigger a warning light on your dashboard until the damage is already underway. The good news is that now you know exactly what to watch for and what to change. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing, and we will see you in the next one.